Representations of protest. The 1960s was a pivotal time in world politics. Countries were falling to communism at the same time other countries were gaining their own independence. While this was going on, those in the West were starting to explore their freedoms and changed their views on war and violence. The Vietnam War was a point of contention in the Western world. The French had occupied Vietnam since the 1850s under a colonial regime. During World War II, the Japanese occupied Vietnam in the inhospitable jungle. Amid rumours of an invasion by the United States in 1945, the Japanese ousted the French and took control. After World War II, the Allies divided Vietnam in half, leaving a Japanese-controlled north. At the end of 1945, the Japanese surrendered and Ho Chi Minh took control of Hanoi in the north. This sparked conflict with Vietnam and the formation of rebel factions and military coups. Throughout the next 10 years, both sides sought help from other countries such as Russia and America. Vietnam would become symbolic of the struggle between communism and capitalism. The involvement of these countries, especially United Nations countries such as Australia, was disputed. As there was no reason for these countries to be involved, as no immediate threat existed. It was also a war that was labelled unwinnable, due to the thick jungle terrain that Vietnamese soldiers knew well, but the Westerners hardly knew, and the huge death tolls from Viet Cong attacks. This led to movements in protest of the war, chiefly of which was the moratorium movement. This was widespread protest. It was highly successful in its approach, as it involved many people and was largely non-violent. These protests are represented in a variety of texts, including music, posters, and speeches.
Martin Luther King Jr. wrote a speech to protest the Vietnam War called A Time to Break Silence. It was delivered in the Riverside Church of New York City on the 4th of April, 1967. Throughout his speech, he protested the violence that was occurring in Vietnam, both against the land itself and against the people occupying it, as well as protesting against war and conflict in general. He began his speech with the statement, "A time comes when silence is betrayal. This time has come for us." This evocative statement is used to start his speech in a powerful manner, reinforcing the idea that not protesting the Vietnam War was just as condemning as advocating the war, as the act of ignoring the atrocities committed meant that none who stood silent could be considered innocent and free of blame. King continued his speech, denouncing the violence committed by all countries involved in the conflict, the difficulties of going against one's country and the beliefs of the people around them is shown with the statement, "Nor does the human spirit move without great difficulty against all the apathy of conformists through thought in the surrounding world." However, King believed that despite both sides committing great atrocities, the evils partaken in by America were greater than those caused by the Vietnamese. As such, he encouraged the audience to protest against the Vietnam War. Various techniques were used throughout King's speech to increase the effectiveness in delivering the message. He quoted various other speeches and poems, such as the work of Langston Hughes, to convince the audience that protesting the Vietnam War was a just cause. The quote, "Oh yes, I say it plain, America never was America to me, and yet I swear this oath, America will be," is used to show that America would never achieve its full potential while it remained divided. King tried to emphasize the point that only through uniting in a just cause, such as protesting the war, would America be able to achieve the dreams of its forefathers. King also played on the patriotism of his audience to convince them to protest against the Vietnam War, specifically through phrases such as, "It should be incandescently clear that no one who has any concern for the integrity and life of America today can ignore the present war." This particular sentence was intended to persuade the audience that it is their patriotic duty to America to go against the war, as it was poisoning and destroying the American way of life. Another technique used by King in his speech is metaphor, saying that if the American lifestyle dies and one looked at the autopsy, then part of the autopsy must read Vietnam. It was through the usage of such terms that Martin Luther King Jr. was such a successful orator, and without these techniques his speeches would not capture the hearts and minds of his audience in such a fashion, convincing them to passionately protest the injustices of the Vietnam War.
There are multiple texts that people used to express their feelings about the Vietnam War. One of those was "Give Peace a Chance" by John Lennon. Lennon uses repetition of the sound ism to mock how the media is making everything sound professional and under control by adding ism to a word. Also, the refrain of the drawn-out chorus, "All we are saying is give peace a chance," emphasizes the main message of the piece. The rhythm is fast-paced in the verse, showing the franticness of the world in the 60s time period, while the refrain is drawn out and a lot slower, which symbolizes peacefulness. The song is organized into verse, chorus, etc. This gives you a sense of repetition, which drives the message of peace into the audience's mind. Another text used as a form of protest was a moratorium poster, "Abolish conscription now." The target audience is women between the age of 30 to 50 years who are wives or partners of men. The purpose of the poster is to persuade and inform the target audience about conscription and its unfairness. The poster is cartoonish in nature, which has a low modality. The salient image is the 5 men, 4 of which do chosen jobs, while the 5th is forced into the army. As the view is at eye level, it conveys the sense that all the men in the poster are equal. The men are looking at the audience, which conveys a sense of demand to do something about the situation. The red, black, and white color scheme, as well as the bold text, gives an effect of importance. Also, the long shot of the men suggests public distance, which shows that you don't know them, but they are important, as they symbolize the unfairness of conscription.